Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And since Saturday Night Live just had their 50th anniversary, I've decided it would be fun for some of my trivia reviews over the next few weeks to be about the movies that are based on sketches from that show. Now, this first one is not actually based off of just the sketches, but the first episode itself, as I'm going to review the 2024 film Saturday Night. Here is your trivia question for today. When Lorne Michaels needs a lighting technician, what show does he take one from? So, in the film Saturday Night, we essentially are watching a mad dash to a finish line as producer Lorne Michaels is trying to make his idea, his baby, come to life, which is bringing a bunch of improvisers and comedians and just talented people together to make not exactly a variety show, but something new and different and something for audiences of this generation. So we get to observe Michaels as he's not only fighting with his own people, but also against the people above him, as it looks like they did not have much faith in this becoming an actuality. So we get to see all the chaos that happens on the first night of the first episode of Saturday Night. So this movie was directed and co-written by Jason Reitman. Here's a bit of random trivia for you. Reitman's two favorite SNL sketches are Meet Your Second Wife with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler and A Holiday Wish with Steve Martin. Now, Saturday Night was not the original title for the film. It was originally SNL 1975. Technically, this would have been incorrect, though, as it was just called Saturday Night when it first premiered, as there was already a variety show called Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell. Once that show ended, they would then take on the live and be known as SNL going forward. This entire movie does take place in real time. What's interesting though is some people have noticed that they did go back in and use CGI on some of the clocks on the walls to make sure that the timing was right. Now, obviously, the movie primarily centers around Lorne Michaels, but we do also get to meet all of the original cast for the show. And when it comes to the casting for this movie, I thought that they did a phenomenal job. Here are some of the performances that really stood out to me. Matt Wood, in my opinion, was my personal favorite. I thought he was so good as John Belushi. Second for me was Gabriel LaBelle as Lorne Michaels. These next two actors may not have looked exactly like their characters, but they sounded exactly like them. And that was Matthew Rhys as George Carlin and Nicholas Podney as Billy Crystal. Honestly, I'm going to give a bit of a shout out to all of the primary cast. Corey Michael Smith was very convincing, in my opinion, as Chevy Chase. Also, as it's mentioned in the movie, Chevy Chase was potentially a replacement for Johnny Carson. In 1993, he got his own talk show, The Chevy Chase Show, which unfortunately bombed and only lasted 6 weeks. Dylan O'Brien as Dan Aykroyd was one of the earliest castings I heard about with this film, and I really did not see it as something that would actually be feasible. But honestly, he's one of the best people in this film when it comes to portraying their character. Dan Aykroyd, by the way, was the only member of the original cast who got to read this script before the film was made. Lamorne Morris was a very believable Garrett Morris. In fact, he lost 40 pounds to be able to play him. These next three actresses may not have gotten as much screen time as some of the male characters, but they were all very believable as their characters. You had Ella Hunt as Gilda Radner, Kim Matula as Jane Curtin, and Emily Farron as Lorraine Newman. Another actor that did a phenomenal job and actually played two characters was Nicholas Braun. He played Andy Kaufman and he played Jim Henson. Now, he was originally only hired on to play Jim Henson, but when they brought in Benny Safdie to play Andy Kaufman, he actually had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. Jim Henson did actually have a really rough time on Saturday Night Live, as none of the writers wanted to write for puppets. Disagreements between both sides are the reason why you don't see many SNL cast members showing up early on The Muppet Show. It is believed that the events that occurred during the first episode of Saturday Night Live inspired Jim Henson to have the opening of The Muppet Show be complete chaos with Kermit running around trying to do everything. Another great performance in this film was J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle. Now, what's funny is The stories about Burl and his, well, size are apparently true. And in the movie, Simmons had a prosthetic for his scenes. Now, during one take, it fell off and smacked against the floor. Everyone laughed, and it took a bit for them to reset on that one. In the film, Milton Berle tells Lorne Michaels he looks forward to hosting the show soon. He didn't actually host until season 4, and Michaels actually considers it the worst episode at that time. J.K. Simmons, by the way, has appeared in every Jason Reitman directed film except for 2018's Tully. As of 2024, the only actors from this film who have hosted SNL are Willem Dafoe and J.K. Simmons. John Batiste, who not only played the leader of the band in this film, but also did the sound and score for it, recorded the score for the film live on set. The actual band members, by the way, were made up of 6 current members of the SNL band. Primarily known for the television series Stranger Things, Finn Wolfhard has a brief cameo in this film as he worked with both Jason Reitman and Gil Kenan on the 2 most recent Ghostbuster films. In the film, Don Pardo struggles with saying Dan Aykroyd's name. In real life, he would actually just introduce the whole cast as the not ready for primetime players. Also in this movie, a stagehand tells art director Akira Yoshimura that he'll be gone in 2 weeks. As of 2024, he's still with the show. If you look really carefully at one of the backstage desks, there is a box of colon blow. This is actually from a sketch that was in season 15 featuring Phil Hartman. It's funny how in this movie, Johnny Carson tries to convince Lorne Michaels to just give it up and come work for him as a writer. In 2014, Michaels would actually become producer for The Tonight Show when Jimmy Fallon took over. So the movie obviously takes place in New York, and some of it was filmed there, but some sequences were also filmed in Georgia. So when it comes to the film Saturday Night, as I mentioned, I am a huge fan of the casting for this movie, and then the story itself, it took a little bit for me to get into it because it was very chaotic at first. And mind you, that's the whole story is supposed to be chaos. But it took me a bit to get into it. Once I did, though, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. If you like this film, other movies I recommend are Noises Off, Ed Wood, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Hail Caesar. Now it's time to answer the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. When Lorne Michaels needs a lighting technician, what show does he take one from? So, since he was desperately in need of one, he ended up stealing a technician from the variety show The Rumpus Room. It is also known as the Rumpus Hour, but I was not able to find anything online as to what the difference between those two names are. So, if you said either one, you're correct. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. Just keep an eye out if you're a big fan of the films based off of SNL sketches, as I will try to get through all of the ones that I possibly can.